Meeting to order. Ms. Swopes, will you please call the roll?
Mayor Miller,
Here.
Ms. Cordova,
Here.
Mr. Robinson,
Here.
Mr. Lopez.
Here.
Mr. Self,
Here.
Ms. Parker,
Here.
Mr. Rackler,
Here.
Mr. Elkins,
Here.
and Mr. Merrick.
Here. Okay, if you'd please stand, I'd like to ask Councilor Rackler to lead us in the invocation and Councilor Merrick to lead us in the pledges.
Lord, we just come to you tonight in honest and sincere of heart that we're trying to do what's best for our city. I've prayed today all day on Proverbs 3:5-6, which says, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not depend on your own understanding. Seek his will in all you do, and he'll show you which path to take. I just pray that tonight we take that into consideration in all decisions that we make. I'm thankful that our community comes and wants to speak and wants to visit with us about their concerns, and I hope we listen carefully and address them in a way that is best for our community. We ask all of it in your son's name, and thank you for his sacrifice for our sins. In Christ's name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. The flag, state of Mexico, is the symbol of perfect friendships among united cultures.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. I think before we move on to our next item, which is public comment, I'd like to take a moment and wish Councilor Self a happy birthday. Today's his birthday, and I'd like to wish him happy birthday. Our next item is public comment. The public has the opportunity to provide comment on subjects regarding city business during the public comment period. Speakers' comments will be limited to 3 minutes unless the mayor and/or councilors request more information. The time limit is given in an effort to allow public input, but also to move the agenda forward in a prompt yet efficient manner. All speakers must sign in at the beginning of the meeting. Topics are limited to 6 speakers per topic. My first speaker on the list is Mr. Randy Dunson to speak about the American Legion. Randy, you don't mind, and if you don't go ahead, mind, and introduce yourself and.
Yes, my name is Randy Dunson. I'm from the American Legion here. And Mr. Mayor and council members, I want to first of all thank you for the support you've given us in trying to redo the veterans markers in the local cemetery. And we've done about 700 so far. We've had a lot of community support as well. And we're going to have a work day again, April the 13th at 9 o'clock. And this is kind of a special work day. And I also have an invitation for each of you. I got some printed invitations for you at each and some extras. On April the 26th at 1 o'clock, we're going to have a grade-size service for Private Homer J. Mitchell. Private Mitchell was the son of Mr. and Mrs. Roy Mitchell, and he enlisted in the U.S. Army August 5, 1943. November 44, he was in the Pac-10 forest near Dillingen, Germany, and he was reported killed in action. His body could not be evacuated due to the intense fighting, and American forces were ordered to withdraw due to the intensity of the mortar and artillery strikes. Following the end of the war, efforts were made between 1946 and 1950 in this area to recover the remains of those listed as missing in action. And they were unable to recover or identify Private Mitchell's remains. And he was officially listed as killed in action in November of 1951. Later efforts, remains identified as Private Mitchell were accounted for July 24th, 2023. Roosevelt County lost 96 of its young men in World War II. It's a rare occasion for us to be able to honor one of these heroes so many years later. We hope that you will find the time to attend this special service and pay tribute to this young man and thank his family for his service to our nation. And this service is open to everyone. We had a similar service last April for Private Thomas Vernon Long, victim of the Baton Death March. We had a lot of dignitaries come from Santa Fe, and there wasn't anybody from the city. So, and maybe you didn't know, but anyhow, I want to make you aware of this. And I hope that you'll find the time to come and honor this young man and his family. So, yes, it is April 26th at 1 o'clock. It will be a graveside service. Thank you.
Thank you, Randy.
Thank you.
Okay, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 people signed up to speak on the Senior Citizen Center. If you would pick the 6 that you would like to speak, we will start. So if there's, we'll start at the top of the list, and when I get to 6, that'll be the 6th. Okay. Thank you, Judge. So now we got more. First one is Rita Modlo. Yes, ma'am, you may.
I am the secretary of.
Would you state your name though for the record, please?
Rita Marvel. I am the secretary of the board of the senior citizens, and we lately have been having a lot of gossip coming from the La Casa. Evidently, someone from the city went to La Casa and asked them if they would like to merge with us. And also, the way the woman at La Casa understood it was they wanted, La Casa, the city wanted La Casa to buy out the senior citizens on Industrial Drive. But no one has come out to us to ask us about merging with them. And so we were just curious what's going on.
Okay. We will get back with you and let you know. I think this is an issue that we have been trying to address. So, so Nancy Dunson, you're next on this list. Sorry, Randy, I guess you're the only one that had to go to the podium. So.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
My name's Nancy Dunson. We're a attend out of the senior citizens and I know there's money problems. Our building needs some, it's in good shape, except just some superficial. We got tiles that have fallen down, vents that have fallen down. They've been down for several years now. Sitting on a bench. We painted, we cleaned up out there, trying to get it to look nice and proper. We know there's 3 different organizations here in the city for seniors. There's La Casa, there's a community services center, and then there's a senior center that, and I don't know, we visited La Casa yesterday. Most of these people that are here are dancers. We like our dance, we enjoy our dance. The senior center out on Commerce, whatever that's Industrial Road, is the only one with a room big enough to have dance. And anyway, that's all I've got to say. We just like to be informed what's going on, because we understand that the Community Services Center and La Casa were invited to and asked if they wanted to merge. We were not included in any of it, and we just like to be informed what's going on. I think that's most of what we're after.
Thank you. Next is Ruth Sykes.
Well, Randy's was more important than mine, but about a year and a half ago, I played bridge on Tuesdays. I went across the road. I started across the road, and boy, my car just made sound like I was being shot. And then I looked on it, and it was the levelizer that was out. So then I went on home out to get it fixed. I spent $1,400. I've complained about that. I complained about it at the last meeting. It's still there. Those holes have not been filled up at all. And then one lady that does this, transit system, she said she had complained about it, but nothing has been done. Now mine is little compared to all these others.
Okay.
But like they're talking about those vents and things being down, they're down. Nothing's been done. They're set on the side all the time. And we did complain about the cleaning. They started cleaning it a little bit better. But the roads, who does the yard work, they don't do it right.
So she wasn't speaking on the senior citizens. All right, actually, Ray and Jane, if you had any comments on that, that's fine. I'm gonna skip down then, Yvette Howe. You didn't list, okay? Jim Moore. Okay,
It very well said what I was gonna say.
okay. Thank you. Daniel Sanchez. Okay, well, I don't know, I'm just going down the list. Bobby Hamilton, did you have anything? Okay. Bob Inge, did you have anything you wanted to speak on? Okay. All right, well, that's all that we've got on our senior citizens and Ms. Modrell, Ms. Dunson, maybe we can get together first part of next week. I'll sit down with y'all. Okay. All right, thank you. All right, we're going to move to our regular agenda now. The first item is the minutes of the previous meeting, our regular meeting held March 12th, 2024.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Merrick, second by Ms. Parker. Is there any additional comments? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next item is introduction of Jason Burns, contract consultant. Ms. Austin.
Good evening, Mayor Council. I did want to introduce you to Mr. Burns. He is going to be our contract consultant. He'll help with projects, funding, acquisition of property, and equipment. And I brought him in to speak to you guys tonight in case you have any questions and introduce you to him.
Thank you. Mr. Burns, you have any comments? Brief?
Brief. I don't know if brief is in the description, but no, Mr. Mayor, Council, thank you for the opportunity and Ms. Austin for the opportunity to come in and chip in where we can. You know, I look forward to bringing some of my successes and insights to what we've done in the past to hopefully some to the city of Portales and a little bit of family legacy back to Portales. So I'm really looking forward to it and thank you for the opportunity. So.
Thank you. Jason, real quickly, you might just say, I mean, I know this, but you guys don't know this. Couple of things. First of all, Jason's grandfather is a former mayor of the city of Portales, Mike Burns, for some of you that might remember Mike. Second of all, if you have just a moment, give us a little bit about your background, your education.
So I have just real quick, I was born and raised and I was actually born in Portales, believe it or not, and raised in Clovis, ended up in school at New Mexico State with a background in civil engineering and business, and went pretty much right into large project management and rolled right into city government and kind of stuck with that model and kind of ended up in county government. And through that have really focused on infrastructure and projects and engineering and getting really efficient at spending government money. So that's what you're supposed to do as government employees, is put taxpayers to good use back for the taxpayers. And I've gotten really efficient at that and doing it in a manner that the taxpayers can see the benefit of it. And that's really at the end of the day, what I'd like to bring is, you know, a process and the efficiency of getting your dollars back into your community and back into Portales so that they see the benefit, so that the holes are fixed for the senior center and that the grants are spent and they don't hang out there so long. And that's not just a problem for Portales. That's a problem for the entire state. And that was a large topic of discussion this year during the legislative session, was the funding that entities in New Mexico get that's just hanging out there, not being spent. that's what I want to bring to the table, and that's what I'd like to bring to the city, and that efficiency of being able to get things done. So.
Jason. Anybody have any questions for Jason at this point? Well, I'm sure we'll see you more often.
Soon and often.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good meeting. Thank you.
Next item is a water update. Ms. Flores? Okay, Chris?
Good evening, Mayor Council. So I'm gonna piggyback kind of off of last update that we gave. It's kind of year to present. We're working on the 6th fire hydrant. I don't know if you noticed on South Abilene. We're running into some issues on that as far as infrastructure that's there. There's a 4-inch that's leading up to a 6-inch fire hydrant. It's not feasible, so we're having to reconstruct or not reconstruct, but update the system, put a 6-inch main in to feed a 6-inch fire hydrant. We're still waiting on DBSNA. We're waiting on the phase 3 of the geophysical survey, which is we're just waiting on approval. It'll come, they're gonna come on a meeting with us with the water advisory meeting. And then they're gonna present what that phase 3 entails. We've been working on preventative maintenance on the collection system, still waiting on the flow meters. I got with the guy that ordered them. He's checked an email. It's still on order. Wellfield, we got 40 done. Some of the council members were able to see that. That it's 60 gallons per minute. I'm not sure the depth on it. I think it was 180. So, and then that's pretty much update on last time. I do want to, on behalf of the water department, give you guys my recommendation on stage 3 restrictions. I still feel like we need to continue our conservation efforts by doing that and not to lift these restrictions. And I stand for any questions.
Questions for
Mr. Mayor, not a question, but a comment. I just wanted to thank you in public, and I'm sure the other guys do as well, and Eric as well, for the tour last week on Thursday. Very, very informative. You guys were very patient with those of us who didn't know wells like Eldon does, and explain how everything works. It was very, very informative, and you were both very professional and very courteous, and I couldn't brag on you more, and I have been ever since. So not that I wasn't before, but more so.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. I mean,
Thank you, Mr. Rackman. Anyone else?
I'll echo that. I really appreciate you guys walking us through everything out there and kind of giving us a tour of what was going on. It's opened up a few trains of thoughts in my brain, and I'm sure it did with the rest of them. So
Absolutely.
hopefully we can come to a good solution to help us out.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Next item is the Roosevelt County Community Development Corporation GRT rebate proposal. Ms. Diaz.
Mayor, Council, thank you for having me tonight. Just bringing a proposal for a potential GRT rebate. As the RCCDC, our Economic Development Board, in several of our meetings, we have talked about our gap analysis. So we were partnered with Retail Strategies a few years ago. They're a recruiting partner. And as you see, and I'm sorry, it's a little bit small, but we have almost $33 million a year leaking out of Portales, Roosevelt County. That is in general merchandise alone. As it goes down, food and beverage, building materials, and health and personal care, all the way down to about $21 million leaving Roosevelt County. And so this was our gap analysis. So we, of course, we're talking about ideas of how do we keep those dollars in Portales and Roosevelt County. So as you see, just for a visual, those are the 4 categories that were the highest on leakage. So we have looked at a couple different communities that were going through an incentive for their Lita retail. What it is it's a small percentage of the GRT that will be reimbursed to new or expanding businesses. question, big thing, it does not deplete our current LEDA fund that we have. It is performance-based, meaning the higher their, what they put into GRT, the more they will get back. It's just an additional incentive, and what we're kind of looking at now is finding guidelines for applicants that are subject to GRT. So what we would like to ask is to have a committee from the city council, LEDA finance, to look through some of these possibilities and just kind of explore what we can do that will suit our community. I think there's just one more slide. Sorry, this isn't very long, just kind of for you to have a visual. Here are a couple of questions from finance committee meeting. If I miss any of the questions, please go ahead and just ask me. It was asked, is this a city county participation? It is not right now for the communities that we looked at. It is just city. That does not mean that it could not involve the county. But as of right now, the ones we've seen are only based on the city. So what we did see, the two communities that are introducing something like this is the city of Clovis and Hobbs. I did put Lee County, but Lee County is not involved. It's the city of Hobbs. That was a question that was asked. And Clovis, they have received some applications, but they've not actually gone through the entire process of seeing the reimbursement yet. So both communities are in the very beginning, not very beginning, I probably shouldn't say that. They are at the first phases of starting an incentive like this. So just to kind of be kind of moving in the same direction as other communities and not getting behind, that we also would have an incentive to offer newer expanding businesses. We just wanted to bring this to the council and see if there's an option to put together some sort of committee to, at this point, just explore options and see what we might be able to do. So
Questions?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I wanted to kind of make sure we're clear on one thing from the meeting we went to. Several of us attended the economic development meeting. And it seemed clear to me that the business we recruit, that incentive is going to be a rebate on their own gross receipts that they pay. So I don't want the community thinking that the gross receipts is going to go down that everybody else is paying. It's coming out of what they would be paying until a certain limit that gets set later gets reached.
yes,
But we would still be getting some of that gross receipts. We're just trying to draw businesses in using that part of their gross receipts to get them to come to Portales. I believe I understood correctly.
yes, and I believe I'm on the same page. That is correct. So right now, if the business is out here, they're creating zero revenue. So when they create that revenue, it's a percentage based on what they pay in. So in theory, it seems like a win-win situation. There's more GRT coming in, and then they also get a small incentive back for either relocating to the community or, expanding their business.
And the time period was up to 10 years, wasn't it?
So that was piggybacked off of another community that we had looked at. It was about 2.5%, up to 10 years. And there's many parameters that we can set, which is why it just needs to be an exploratory time where we can look at what percentage works for our community. How long do we want the longevity? We may only say 5 years. I mean, that all can be set, of course, by the council. So as I said, very exploratory, but kind of first steps in this is partnering and figuring out what we can do to try to help out. new
I
and
did
existing.
receive your email, Jody, so thank you for that, and we will look to, well, I would make a motion that we form a committee to, we don't need a motion.
Yeah, it's just a matter of whether we want to move forward with this, which I think the consensus is what we do. And I think we can put this committee together, as Jody suggested, between the EDC and our LEDA committee, keeping it inclusive enough, but yet workable enough. So, I was at the Hobbs City Commission meeting when Hobbs City, and that was just a couple of weeks ago, when they adopted the parameters that were presented to them under this plan. And I think the parameters would be up to that committee to bring back.
Yes.
And that's when we would decide about our participation. I think there's ordinances that have to be adopted as these applications are approved. And I mean, Hobbs, their parameter is a business to qualify has to generate at least $1.5 million in GRT before they qualify. So, but that's Hobbs. It doesn't have to be. So, but anyway, so I think, Jody, I think the consensus is, yeah, we'd like to move forward. I think we should get together. I think we had the corpus of that committee already in place between your board and our LEDA finance committee. Because I think those are the places that they would go to. So I think they would be proper to adopt, to work with you on the parameters to bring back to us. And at that time is when we would actually accept, the program itself. Because then we know what the boundaries are. So is there any objection to making it up out of those two committees? I think those are the proper committees and we already have those in place. So, okay.
Great,
Thank
thank you.
Thank you, Judy.
Thank you.
Now we're going to go to the Miss McClellan show. The next large part of the agenda belongs to Miss Kelly and Community Services. The first item is a notice of intent to adopt amendment to ordinance number 680, referring to sections 13309, amendment for animal control.
Thank you, Mayor Council. And yes, I am taking over the agenda today. I apologize, so I'll try to make it brief. If you guys have any questions, definitely hit me up. So when we took over the animal shelter in July, the ordinance was very specific to the police department. A lot of that wording is for the police department. So we knew we were gonna have to do an amendment to the ordinance to change it so it could be other departments also filling in. But we had known our ordinance needed some work. It's been since 2009 since it's been amended on animal control. So if you'll go to the next page, we reached out to animal welfare lawyers, some big rescues, some international rescues, and some other cities and other states that have a really good hold on their animal control to discuss their ordinances. So this ordinance recommendation that is in your guys's packets updates just a lot of the language from the police department, updated out-of-date definitions and legal procedures to match current ones. Some of the the new things is it added a backyard fowl permit for female fowl. And then it bolstered our commercial permit and our multi-animal permit. Those are permits we already offer in our current one. But it was recommended that we make them a little more official because it didn't matter if the people they could have 15 animals as long as they paid for their multi-animal permit. But it didn't say if the animals were being taken care of or if they were out running around. So this puts, you actually have to you can't have so many nuisance calls on it for barking, them being unvaccinated, them running loose, allows us to revoke those permits. And then this went through a ton of people in the drafting process. It went through the New Mexico Self-Insurers Fund, our city attorney, an animal welfare lawyer, looked it over for free for us. We sent it some rescues, and then anyone who requested it from a city hall we actually had about the animal shelter. So this would just be the intent to adopt. We could bring it back in 30 days for the official adoption and a public hearing to make minute changes or to agree upon a final version. So if you guys have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Sorry, I keep starting this every time, but I'm just. I don't want to overstress this, but I've got a lot of highlight in this thing, a lot. And I don't think we want to take up time here in the meeting to go through all the things here. We have paragraphs that are duplicated, word for word. This thing is very, very long, took me 3 hours to get through it. I think that's a little long for an ordinance. We have some concerns. I have some concerns about any female fowl being in there. I'd rather just say chickens because ducks still make a lot of noise. So do turkeys. So do turkeys. I don't want those in my neighborhood either, but that's just me. How do we address things we'd like to see in the next draft before you bring it back is my question.
So perfect. So we would do the intent to adopt, and then when we come back, then you guys can make the final changes that you'd like to see, saying, hey, we'd like to adopt this with XY changes. And then that would be adopted with the changes that you guys would like to see, or that the public would say to you that you'd like to change after that meeting as well.
So we're not going to change anything between them.
Yes.
You can.
You can, yeah, we would just do the intent to adopt
Okay.
as this, and then the changes can go from there.
Okay.
But yeah, you can adopt the final one at the intent to adopt.
And I just, Mayor, my man,
Yes, sir.
if any of you have any comments, I've got 1,000 comments, and Kelly will tell you the same. Please send your comments to me, and we can assemble them all and then try to get something back to you.
Now, 33 cats.
So, that's the way, this will go to publication as is. Because that's what the public could have the opportunity to make comment on. And then when it comes back for final adoption, Or I guess even if we needed to extend that, we could do that too. So, so right now, are there any further questions for Ms. Kelly about this one? Okay, so the proper procedure now would be motion of intent to adopt this ordinance, the amendment to ordinance 680. And that starts this process and the 30-day process, and then this other stuff goes on.
So moved.
We have a motion to, of an intent to adopt the amendments to ordinance number 680. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
One no vote, okay, but the motion carries. Mr. Merrick was a no vote for the record. All right, Kelly, your next item is recommendation for approval of easement application for 211 Floyd Golden Circle.
We go to the next one. So any easements that are over 5 feet come to council for approval. So we received this easement application at 221 Floyd Golden Circle. They're looking to sell the property. When they got it surveyed, they realized that in this little blue highlighted section that they had, as you can see, it kind of cuts off. They'd actually built their fence out 11.5 feet into the alley. We did check with sanitation. When it comes to alleys, they're the ones we like to see if they have a protest, they can still get their trucks in. They said they did not have any protest. So we're here to seek approval from the council to do an easement agreement. The easement agreement is in your packet. It allows the sale of the property to go through if they have mortgages or loans, but still gives us rights that if we need that removed, we can at later dates say we need to build here, we need to remove your fence. So it's not a permanent agreement there, but it's saying we're allowing it as is for the sale of the house. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Questions?
Yep. Guess I'm gonna have one on everyone. I personally don't understand why we're not just having them put the fence on their property line. I mean, it's a small amount of chain link fence. I'm confused why we're making a variance over 20-something feet of chain link fence.
I also have a question. So if this person is out of compliance, the person to the left is also out of compliance.
I believe so. If they have a fence there, then yes, they'd be out of compliance as well.
Okay. So are they being notified that they need to have a variance?
Not the moment. The reason this one was caught was because they are transferring the property of the houses. But for Mr. Reckler's, it is something if they do deny it, then we can make them move their fence, or we can allow them to keep their fence there. That is at the pleasure of the council.
But I'm sorry, I'll wait to see if there's any other questions.
Can I ask who denied?
If
The council.
If the council?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, if the council does not want the fence to remain there, then we would not do the agreement. And for most mortgages, they would have to remove the easements to continue with the home loan for a new buyer.
That's another question.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
In this, you name two individuals that this is going to affect, but they're not the owner of the property, so why is
Yes.
the owner of the property not listed here?
So the current owner of the property is selling to the new person, so it'd be the new person who would go up on the easement.
Okay. I thought it might be that situation, but I wanted to make sure.
Yes, sir.
And are there any other questions? I was just gonna make a comment. This application went to the planning and zoning, is that correct?
No, so easements don't go through planning and zoning,
Okay.
they come straight here.
I guess I've got a question on lot 5. No, it says on lot 4. So lot 5 is 11.5 feet, and on lot 4, it says 0.9 feet. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct according to the survey that was done.
So my question would be to the point that if this council were to deny this easement, that would just prohibit the sale, right? Who owns the fence? Is it jointly owned?
No, I believe it is the property of the person who's attempting to sell the property.
Okay, so it would not affect the property adjacent.
No, but yeah, it just would affect the person attempting to sell the property.
Until that one sells, and then we'll have to do it. again.
Yes, sir.
And in the description, that the way it calls it out, I think is not actually accurate. Because the way that actually lays, the bottom of the screen is on the east side of the property. So it's actually flipped. And the corner that is being talked about is on the southeast corner. And the description shows it on the northwesterly corner of lot 5 and the southwesterly corner of lot 4. So those directions don't really make sense.
We can ask, that was the description we were given for, from a land surveyor, land engineer. Was the one who provided us this description for that.
Any further questions? What's the pleasure of the council?
No, I don't know if
I
we-
feel like we need some more information before we move forward on this.
I don't know if you make a motion to deny it, but if that's how you do it, I would like to make a motion to deny the request.
Okay, I have a motion that we deny this request. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that.
Okay, Mr. Sell. I have
For
a motion.
clarification, could you explain what you're saying?
I would like for us to deny the request, and they can go over, correct the fence to what the property line is.
You want to second that again?
No, I got a valid motion and a valid second. So the motion is to deny the request for variance. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Ms. Swopes, let's call the roll on this one.
Ms. Cordova,
No.
Mr. Robinson,
No.
Mr. Lopez,
No.
Mr. Sell,
Yes.
Ms. Parker,
Yes.
Mr. Rackler,
Yes.
Mr. Elkins,
Yes.
Mr. Merrick.
Yes.
Okay, by a motion of 5-3, the variance is denied. So I guess what you need to do is get hold of the property owner and tell them they need to correct the fence to the second. Okay. Thank you. Next item is recommendation of approval of planning and zoning vote to resolution number PC 2024202502 for vacation of right of way of 140 feet by 20 feet alleyway between Roosevelt County Electric Co-op and the old Portales City Hall parking lot. This was unanimously approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission. Ms. McClellan.
Chris, if you do that next page. I accidentally sent it to her as a PDF instead of PowerPoint. So this was it's a request to vacate the area between RCEC building and the old city hall. There is that alley. They would like to have that vacated, so it could be part of a parking lot with electric car chargers on where the alley is now. So this went to P and Z on March 11th, where it was unanimously voted to be approved and come to you guys through council. The postmaster originally did have a protest, so it was delayed at P and Z, but they brought up plans. The postmaster pulled their protest and now approves of this as well. If you guys approve it in your recommendation, it would be congruent on the other utility companies in that alleyway doing easements would be the new owner, which is RCEC. So the water department has agreed to do an easement if this is passed, but there's a New Mexico Gas Company still has a line in there, Yucca has a line, and Excel has a line. So as long as they're fine with easements, which they usually don't have a problem with, then it usually moves forward. So we just asked that that's, if approved, that's part of your movement. And then, of course, the intent is for electric charging stations for electric vehicles and then the downtown parking and some open space. As Chris, if you show the next one. We put the plans here. So where the top are, we see that top line of parking is explained to us that there'd be some charging stations there where the alley was, so people could still access off of First Street and come down for the mailboxes. And that area will be parking. And then it looks like this area that is City Hall will be Xeriscape. you have any questions, I'm happy to stand for them.
Questions? Mr. Merrick?
So the alleyway that's being vacated, is that gonna be concreted over or is this, is it?
So it'd be that top part, and it looks like they're gonna bring the parking over there with asphalt and then put the electric charging stations against the wall. So they don't have to run the lines there.
But any access to the gas lines would still be available, they just,
It'd just be under the
it'd be
asphalt.
paving instead of concrete, correct?
Yes.
There is a portion of that that we discussed at P and Z that there's a portion of that that's still gonna allow the trucks to back up to the post office and Mr. Scovia has agreed to make sure that is sufficient depth to make sure that it's not gonna be an issue for the post trucks. That was part of the discussion. Not the entire parking lot, but just that part that would be where they would back up. And after the drawings were done and stuff, the postmaster understood that it would really it wouldn't make their access any harder. If it did anything, it would make it easier. So that's why we chose to go ahead and approve it.
So just a bit, so the public would actually come down First Street and then turn and then go around. So they would still have access to the
Yes,
mailboxes.
they
So
just go in front of City Hall and then take that turn between the post office and City Hall, and then they could go over for the drop boxes.
Is that the access and egress is that the access also to this parking lot is off First Street?
You can access it there, but you can also access, looks like from the side over there as well.
I didn't know whether one was in, or was out, so.
It'd be Main and First, but I do believe coming from First is still an alley, correct, on that in between?
Yes, right there will still be an alleyway.
So there's still easement to get to it.
Go ahead.
This may not be on this particular subject, but I'm worried about, I still think the post office is a danger zone for senior citizens who come in park there to get out. We have trucks coming down first and seniors get out, and some of us have the equilibrium problem. And I just wonder, in this plan, the electric car plan, are they gonna figure out some kind of way we can get those seniors parking in this area and try to eliminate the parking on the highway? Cause I'm afraid somebody's gonna get run over. And I don't know if this plan, if you guys at Planning Commission talked about this, but I think it should be brought up. And I think it's very important that we look at that before we approve anything.
We did discuss that at planning and zoning, and there is more parking here available than what there is now in that little roadway between the post office and the old city hall. There's now additional parking spots, and I can't forget the number. Kelly may remember how many of them were gonna be designated as handicap, but it was gonna be a larger number than there is now.
So we can get the parking off the
So
highway.
you'll get off the street and go ahead and park there between what would be the old city hall and the post office. And then there's that long ramp that goes down that. So, okay.
Thank you for thinking about that. No problem.
Any further questions?
I have one. So if you're coming through the alley here and it shows like a one-way, would your parking lines not go the other way? You see what I'm saying? So it's in essence gonna be a one-way.
That's why I was asking the question.
Yeah.
It
You
looks
saw
like
that,
one in
yeah.
and one out. The way, if you're angled far.
And then that leaves the whole side open. Is that? Am I looking at something?
Can you just clarify, Kelly, and point at which one's Main Street, which one, just so everybody's. just
Yeah,
walk
so
up there,
the-
Walk up there. and point it.
Yeah, so you got
And then
First Street down here. So this would be where the front of City Hall is, and then you got your parking around here would be the side of City Hall.
it's Main Street.
So that's Main Street over on the right. Okay.
The main
But-
entrance to
It
that
is pretty
parking
much
spot.
one.
If I remember right, during planning and zoning meeting, they were talking about the truck for the post office comes in the alley. And they pull down and then into the parking lot and then back into the dock. So to do that, he's actually going against the flow of the arrow there. And then whenever he goes to leave, he's either got to make a U-turn and go back out to follow that flow of the arrow, or he needs to go out back to Main Street.
Wrong way.
And that's against the traffic parking spots also.
I will say that's how it is currently. That's the only reason that this drawing was drawn the way that it was, is that's the current formality for that driver.
Okay.
Further questions? This was approved by P and Z. So what's the pleasure of the council?
I make a motion, we accept the recommendation of planning and zoning.
So.
Have a motion and a second to accept the recommendation of planning and zoning with regard to PC 24-2502. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
No.
No.
2 noes
And I will abstain.
and 1 abstention.
Do I need a reason for that? I think you explained that to us last time.
You would just explain your reason for abstaining.
Okay, just as an employee of Roosevelt County Electric, I'm abstaining.
Okay, thank you. So on a 5-3 or 5-2 vote, it was, the motion passes. Thank you. All right. Ms. McClellan, next item is recommendation for approval of planning and zoning vote for resolution PC 24-2503 for a vacating of right of way for a platted but undeveloped road known as East 15th Street. This unanimously voted for denial by the planning and zoning committee.
So if we'll go to this next one. So here's the road we're talking about. This is between 15th Street. It is platted as a roadway, but it is an undeveloped roadway. So right now it's just dirt and grass. So anytime we do a vacation, if it's approved or denied, it does come in front of council. According to our ordinance, but this one's also coming in front of you because it had some extra considerations for its denial that we'd like to bring up. The original request to have that vacated was because they were afraid that one of the property owners, and you can see your lots 6-8 through lots 9 and 10, that area, would at some point, by maybe a future planning and zoning director, be required to bring in that developed road. And that there is side access off South Hartford and South Ithaca. It did go through planning and zoning. Go to the next page, Ms. Danny. Where it was denied, because there are some properties out of the 100-foot that would like to maybe at some point be a subdivision and then use that 15th Street as an access point, so they're not accessing through a side road. So the vote was to deny this vacation, but the property owners abutting this vacation would not be responsible for development of that road. And if any future development wanted to use that road for their subdivision, that they would be the ones that need to bring in that improvement if they don't want to use on the side road. I said some of the reasons for the denial were there's quite a few utilities in that area. And not all the utilities were willing to do easements. And then the emergency services would like to keep that open so they have access to the back of the school. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Comments, questions?
Wouldn't the emergency services have access regardless of whether there's a road or not?
They would, but if the road was vacated, the property goes half to Valencia and then half to anyone who butts it on the other side. So there's nothing stopping them from putting fences there. So they could put fences where emergency services would no longer be able to access it. But if the road stays there, no one can build on it. So even if it's not developed, they can still drive down there to access the back of the school.
Can we go, oh, good.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Can we go back to that
Yes.
map? So is there currently a house on block or on lot 6-8? Is that one that was
Yes.
just completed, the
Yes.
facing globe?
Yes, sir.
So going forward, I guess the homes will not face 15th at all anyways? 'Cause we've
No,
already kind of
so-
set precedents for allowing that?
Yeah, that's why they did some of the replats is they wanted to face their buildings towards South Hartford. So you don't have to develop a little part of that road, which is coming up in our next one. Or face it out towards South Ithaca, so they could just develop that road to avoid bringing in the 15th lane.
The only one that was a real concern when we talked about it at planning and zoning was the lot in the middle behind that lot. But the same owner owns those 2 lots that are smaller. That was the only issue, and if he. That was really the only issue we had here. It's what he would do if he chose to sell those lots separately, but he's owned them for 20+ years and. I don't see that happen.
So if there was I'm sorry, if everybody's done, I've got a couple of questions.
I want to say something, if the planning commission denied it, why are we arguing about that?
Because it comes with the extra considerations on allowing that, and our ordinance says that no matter if it's approved or denied, it comes to council, the vacation does. Usually it says it's just the approved ones, but not this ordinance. It does say both of them need to come. before
Because it's
council.
the recommendation of planning and zoning, correct?
Yes,
So then we
but there
start-
are variances if the council or the P and Z recommends denial, it doesn't come forward unless appealed, but this one just comes forward no matter what.
In other words, they won't have the responsibility of not. To me, that planning commission is doing their job, but we're not going along with it.
Yeah, and that's just how the ordinance reads for this specific application was. It had to come to you
I'm
guys.
gonna have a question of our attorney. So as in the past, the council accepts or denies the recommendation of the planning and zoning. So we don't need to discuss whether we want to, or we just accept or deny their recommendation. Is that correct?
That's the normal procedure, but I don't think the ordinance prevents you from taking action on it otherwise. But you know, I don't know if the landowner would accept that. But you can just make changes to it, or you can send it back to the planning commission with your proposed changes, or you could deny it.
My question would be at this point, when this was platted and before it was subdivided, why wasn't the developer required to develop that street?
My
If
best,
any other subdivision that would have taken place.
we've seen this a couple places. Luckily this happened long before I got here. But a lot of what'll happen is they allow subdivisions we don't allow anymore, but they allowed them to phase it. So they could bring in the road infrastructure for phase one, but only build and sell those houses and then use that money to bring in the infrastructure. The problem is when they get to phase four and they go bankrupt and then sell off the individual lots, to individual homeowners before the public infrastructure is done. So now we have in our ordinance, you have to do a bond or bring in all the infrastructure to avoid this situation happening again.
But my other question, under the New Mexico subdivision law, before they subdivide this, they have to meet these requirements under state law, not just our ordinance.
And this is an old subdivision, so I'm not sure why that road was never required to be brought in.
And this subdivision was approved with these lots originally.
Yes, some of the lots have been replatted, but this is the basic plat for the subdivision, yes, sir.
And so then my last comment or question on this would be, so on those two lots in the middle that face Hartford, what you're saying is if they're gonna be developed, they're gonna be required, their address will be South Hartford, correct?
Yes, sir. They could, to avoid bringing 15th if they'd like, they're welcome to develop that little section of Ithaca or Hartford.
And the remaining two lots would either have, one would face Hartford if it's developed, the other one would face Ithaca.
Yes, and the gentleman was open to replatting that if 15th Lane was vacated, so they could just have one house. But if it doesn't get vacated, then he's fine just leaving it as two. Or hasn't put in the application for replat at this point.
Any further questions? What's the pleasure of the council? The recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission is to deny the vacation.
I make a motion, we deny it.
We follow the
We
recommendation.
follow the recommendation of the planning commission.
Okay. Have a motion to follow the recommendation of the Planning Commission. Is there a second?
Second.
They have a motion and a second. The recommendation for approval of planning zoning for resolution number 24-2503 for the vacation of a right of way of a platted but undeveloped road known as East 15th is, the recommendation is to deny. All those in favor of the motion to deny, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Thank you. Okay, Kelly, we're sticking in the same area, it looks like.
Vacations, not the fun.
Recommendation of planning and zoning vote to resolution number PC 24-2504 for vacation of right of way of a platted but undeveloped road known as South Hartford Avenue. This was unanimously unanimously for approval by the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Now, so this one comes to a little bit what we were discussing earlier. That someone on this property wants to build a house. So our regulations are we would make them develop the road to the end of the property over there. So they requested they could vacate that section. They went through planning and zoning on 11th with these other ones. Planning and zoning was amendable to them vacating that top 60 feet that you see in red. but having to develop that bottom 60 feet. The reasoning for that was addressing concerns. They were afraid emergency addressing, if they were looking for something that would be addressed off South Hartford. And so they stop at the end of South Hartford, but the house that they're actually looking for is a block past South Hartford. So that was part of the reason. So the homeowner would still be required to develop that section that hasn't been vacated. The planning commission recommended, instead of what we usually do, which is make them do the whole width of the road, curb and gutter, to have the property owner on your right do his right of the road, which would be the one lane of travel to his right in concrete along with his gutter. The only concern we had about that came from our streets department, which Steve may be able to talk about a little bit more. He still had concerns about erosion because the water would just go off and still erode and flood that area and still cause some regular maintenance, not as much as asphalt, but we'd still be maintaining the concrete. So one of the compromises I asked Steve if he'd be okay with was if in part of this acceptance, we did it that the city wouldn't have to maintain that section of road up until the time the entire road was brought in. And then the city would take over the maintenance. That being until the other homeowner put his half the road in, the city wouldn't be in charge of maintenance. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. And Mr. Rackler was also here for this one as well, so he might be able to give you some more insight.
Questions for Ms. McClellan or Mr. Rackler?
I have a question. So that street is 60-foot width.
I believe
Yes.
I believe so. I believe it's a regulation of 60 feet wide.
So before it's vacated, it's 120-foot long by 60-foot wide.
Yes, sir.
And the part that's being vacated is a 60 by 60 square.
Yeah, it's 60 feet, the northern 60 feet.
And then the part that he's having to develop, now, I may have misunderstood you, but it sounded like you were saying that he had to develop 30 foot of that 60 foot
Yes.
and the curbing.
Yeah, so it'd be his half. So it'd be
Right.
his one lane of travel. like,
Basically,
abutting his
there's gonna
property.
be half of that little small street paved.
Yes, sir.
The other is gonna be dirt.
Up until the point, if the other property owner would like to build,
Okay.
they'd have to bring their part in as well.
Just to let you know where we were coming from, our point of view from planning and zoning was, we didn't feel it was responsibility of owner on the right to pay for the entire street, and then middle of next year, the guy on the left puts in his house and doesn't have to pay for any of the street. It just didn't make sense to us to put that burden on one owner and not the other.
In all actuality, he shouldn't have to have done it anyway because the
Could have already
developer.
been there.
That was my point earlier.
And that was our biggest frustration when these came, and that's why they came to planning and zoning twice, because we didn't understand why none of this was handled when it was brought to planning and zoning first time, years ago.
I guess oh, go ahead, Oscar.
Mr. Mayor and Kelly, it's just a procedure portion I need to ask. I noticed in all of these applications, so persons there, but no one speak against or for. And on the applications, a number of people spoke none. And especially the one we just a few minutes ago, no one spoke. So you mean the applicant didn't say anything?
No, the applicant comes in, but we don't usually count the applicant because they're inherently for it. It's people from the community coming in speaking against them.
Okay, so this don't seem logical for me.
Yes, but no, the applicants on all three of those, which were relative with the same person, he came and he spoke on all of them at all of our meetings.
I just feel if we're going to allow only half of the road to be developed, the landowner on the right is actually putting up the money to pay for the road. I don't feel he should be responsible for the maintenance for the lack of road on the other side. I would think that should be up to the landowner on the left, since they're choosing not to put their side of the road in. But that's just me.
The problem we saw there was that person already owns their lot and has for years, and that requirement wasn't there when they. Now, if they decide to build, then when they put their plan in place, then we could institute that. But right now, there's not any justification for us to say, yeah, you gotta maintain that.
Yeah, I just feel like you're
I agree
penalizing
with
the
the thought
landowner.
process. I just didn't see a way for us to justify that.
Mhm.
Further questions? Pleasure of the council.
I make a motion that we accept the approval, is that recommendation by planning and zoning.
We have a motion by Mr. Elkins, second by Mr. Self to accept the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Committee with resolution PC 242504 for the vacation of a right-of-way of a platted but undeveloped road known as South Hartford Avenue. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Opposed, like sign, motion carries. We're getting close here.
I know. We're done with P and Z, and that's always the hard one.
All right. Next item is a public hearing for approval of adoption of DBE resolution. Would you like to explain this just a little bit before we go into public hearing?
Yeah, of course. So one of our requirements for getting federal grants for our airport is the DBE, which is the disenfranchised business enterprise. This gives this meets the federal requirements that the FAA puts out, saying that we are trying to give marginalized groups that own businesses a fair chance to bid on our projects. They set goals, I think they're 4-year goals, and then we update them as we're needed. If we don't have these, we don't apply for those grants. So this is our time to accept our goals from last year and to implement our goals for the next 2 years. There's a huge packet for this. What that is matching our policy, which we already have in place, to the FAA's policy of what they expect us to have in place. It's updating it, names me as the liaison for these DBEs. It shows our previous projects and goals, and it sets goals for 2024 and 2025. And it includes some attachments that you guys are going to see that are called the good faith efforts, showing that we did our best to meet these goals, but sometimes those goals cannot be met. Case in point, sometimes only one company does something very specific. So if they are not part of the DBE program and we go with them, we won't meet the goal, but we've proved that that is why we didn't meet the goal, not because we're not allowing these businesses to actually apply. We had announced this a couple meetings ago because we have a 30-day period where the public can bring comments to me or send comments directly to the FAA. I didn't receive any comments, and neither did the FAA, as they let me know. So we're just finishing up this last part, which would be the public hearing. And then I'd send signed stuff and we can continue on with our grant applications.
Okay. I need a motion to go into public hearing for the adoption of the DBE, the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise resolution.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We are now in a public hearing. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak in favor of this resolution? Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak in opposition of this resolution? Seeing none, I would take a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved. Second.
Motion in a second by Ms. Cordova, second by Ms. Parker to close the public hearing. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next item is action by the council on the application for the adoption of the DBE resolution. What's the pleasure of the council?
Motion to accept.
I have a comment.
Okay, let me get a second and then we'll have to come.
Second.
I have a motion in a second.
I've read through this and I agree, and I know this is federally mandated. I agree in all businesses having a fair avenue to submit a proposal. But this policy basically skews numbers to the point of allowing someone that is a smaller business to have a better chance of being accepted than a larger business. Which means that you may have a contractor submit a proposal that doesn't have the equipment necessary to do the project, but we've got to give him consideration, even though there's someone more well equipped to do that. So I understand that we kind of have our hands tied in this situation, but I don't agree with the fact that we have to accept this. So I just wanted to put my 2 cents.
To that comment, Kelly, didn't you just say that the good faith effort would be we accepted it, but we didn't grant it because we had to, yeah, okay. So, all right, any other questions? Motion on the floor is to adopt the DBE resolution.
So,
I've got a motion in a second, thank you.
Yeah, roll call.
Ms. Swope, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Cordova,
Yes.
Mr. Robinson,
Yes.
Mr. Lopez,
Yes.
Mr. Self,
No.
Ms. Parker,
Yes.
Mr. Rackler,
Yes.
Mr. Elkins,
Yes.
Mr. Merrick.
No.
Okay, by a vote of 6-2, the resolution is accepted. Thank you. Thank you, Kelly.
Yes, sir.
Take a breath now.
Thank you for all your guys' time.
Next item is public utility. First item is a public hearing for approval of adoption of ordinance number 769, cross connection control and backflow prevention plan. Mr. Mendoza? Or, okay, Ashley. Well, see, you guys tricking me.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So back to the notice of intent, we were wanting to get the ordinance for the cross connection control and backflow prevention plan added to our ordinance. This had came up, something that wasn't taken care of a few years back, came across my desk, and so I thought that getting it taken care of and adding it to our ordinance for the future is something that would be greatly appreciated in the future for especially the people that are drilling wells and anybody that are building new homes and stuff. So if you have any questions in regards to the cross connection control plan and sweet, so many words for this. Cross connection control and backflow prevention plan.
Okay, we're gonna enter into a public hearing. Will you briefly, for the public's purpose, in case they want to have any comment,
Yes.
say exactly what this is?
Okay, what it is, it's pretty much for the safety of potable water in regards to no hold on.
It's to ensure that no hazardous conditions exist between a non-potable and a potable water supply.
Plain simple.
So in layman's terms, there needs to be a backflow valve put in to keep someone's well from feeding back into the city.
So with that explanation, I would like a motion to enter into a public hearing regarding the adoption of ordinance 769.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Self, second by Ms. Cordova. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. We are now in a public hearing. Is there anyone in the public that would like to speak in favor of this ordinance? Is there anyone in the public that would like to speak in opposition of this ordinance? Seeing none, I will accept a motion now to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Parker, second by Mr. Lopez to close the public hearing. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next item is action by the council on application for the adoption of ordinance 769, cross connection control and backflow prevention plan.
So move.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Lopez, second by Mr. Elkins to adopt ordinance 769, cross connection control and backflow prevention plan. Is there any further discussion?
Yes.
Mr. Mayor.
Okay. In reading through this, in one portion, it says that the Public Works Department shall be responsible for the protection of the city water system. And then it talks about 6 different steps that have to be done: inspection, the assessment of the facility, publishing information, yada, yada. And that the city Public Works Department shall have a certified inspection and operational test made annually for backflow prevention devices on the city's property, and that it is at the city's expense. That's going to be a large labor drain for you guys on top of whatever you're doing to go back and have to check backflow valves every year. And then in another portion, that was talking about it being the responsibility of the landowner as a property owner. So I was kind of unclear as to who's actually responsible for this and who's. And it talked about the property owner maintaining records of how they were checked, when they were checked, all of that. So which is it? Is the city maintaining these and checking them every year, or is it the landowner?
I believe that's the landowner, because you gotta be a certified, you have to be certified in backflow prevention.
Right. And in another portion, it was talking about a 40-hour course that the person would have to take to be certified. So any private entity that was gonna install these for a homeowner, a contractor of some sort, they're required to take this 40-hour course. Is that correct?
Well, so in the schools that we go to for NMED, there's a guy that he does courses. He invites you to these courses. It's a 40-hour week. It's pretty pricey, but yes, you do get certified. And I don't know if it's to the public or if it's just he takes on just operators. I'm not 100% sure on that.
Okay. So I guess my question is, once we determine that a backflow valve needs to be installed, is it the city's responsibility to put that in, or is it the landowner's responsibility to have that put in? And is it a city person that's actually doing it and they're paying for it? Or can they hire an outside contractor to come in and do it?
So usually
As
they
long as
hire-
he's certified.
Yes. So usually they hire plumbers, plumbing outfits, that have that certification they did yourself for that application, they'll
Right.
hire them outside.
Okay. That was my main concern after reading through all of that and trying to decipher who was actually responsible for what there.
Okay, any further questions? The motion is for approval of ordinance 769. Ms. Swopes, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Cordova?
Yes.
Mr. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Lopez?
Yes.
Mr. Self?
No.
Ms. Parker?
Yes.
Mr. Rackler?
Yes.
Mr. Elkins?
Yes.
Mr. Merrick?
Yes.
Okay, by a vote of 7-1. Ordinance number 769 has been adopted. Thank you, guys. Next item is public infrastructure. The first item is to approve ratification of the TPF, Transportation Project Fund application for maintenance on various roads, including West University from Highway 70 to Avenue V, Avenue O from University to Highway 267, and West Cherry Street from Avenue O to North Avenue K, and North Avenue K from Highway 70 to Highway 267. Ms. McVeigh.
Mayor and council, thank you. Yes, we have put in for the TPF grant, and so we are asking to approve the ratification of our application.
Questions for Ms. McVeigh on this one?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
Ms. McVeigh, on your, I don't know if you have the map or you could pull it up on the
I have-
website, but I was curious. I go to the basketball games quite often at the Greyhound Arena. And I usually turn by Taco Box, go across the tracks, turn on West Cherry Street, and then take the next left in front of the softball complex.
Mhm.
It's horrible. It's horrible.
It is.
I was curious why that wasn't, I mean, we're right there. Why wasn't that included in the plan?
Yes.
It's not highlighted.
Yeah, it is. Right here.
Which is?
Right there.
Are we looking at different areas?
Right here.
Okay. There's Avenue K right there. There's Cherry. This is Avenue O. So where you're talking about, where you and I talked the other day, well, I thought you were talking about Avenue K, but that, I don't think that's our road.
That's a University Road.
Are we talking about the
Okay.
road in front of the XL substation?
At the stadium.
That's part of the way down that road?
Oscar, I'm sorry, what did you ask me?
Yeah.
That's
He's on the
University
road.
Road.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's not our road.
University Drive?
Yeah.
Oh, is that a University Road? Oh, I'm sorry. University Drive?
No.
That road.
What are you talking about? Do you have the map that you can pull up right here?
No,
We don't have the map.
no, sir.
Yes.
Okay, it comes off of Cherry Street and goes into,
Which is South Avenue,
yeah, but I don't believe that's our road.
No.
That's
University property.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
All right.
That answers that. Thank you.
So the only other question, or the other question, I have one other question. It's my turn.
I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
How are these locations chosen? How are these streets chosen out of the rest of them that we need to fix?
So we definitely looked at University Drive because of everything that goes on and who drives it and who sees it and what it brings. And how often. And so we wanted to make sure that we did Avenue K. Because I mean, that was just really bad. And a couple other ones that are very similar. Basically it was.
So
They're very bad.
what's the process? I mean, is there a committee? What's the process of selecting which street we work on?
Basically a conversation of, I mean, there is kind of a list.
Is you work in conjunction with Eastern?
He said it's to work in conjunction with Eastern and these projects,
On this particular project.
right? And this project was actually started 4 years ago and we're finally bringing it to fruition.
That's my understanding as well. This has been in the works in conjunction with the university for a few years.
So, Mr. Mayor, can we ask Eastern at the same process of doing the roads that they may want to fix the roads at the same time, or?
I think we can. Yeah, I don't think we can force it. It certainly has to be. So, and it was my understanding that at some point in time, they were actually gonna partner with us, maybe even on some of the match
Yes.
on these.
Mhm.
So,
Yes,
and that brings me my question. On your council information, you said that this is 75-25. I thought TPF were 95-5.
I'm a little.
It is 95, sir.
So the match is only 5%, not 25%, as indicated on the first page of the council.
Right, sorry, that was.
Because I think back in the application, you actually do indicate that it's a 5% match.
Yes,
And the match from the city on this particular project would be $82,500,
yes, sir.
not 25%. Okay. What is the pleasure regarding this particular application, TPVF application?
Second.
Motion and a second by Mr. Robinson, a second by Mr. Lopez. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next item is to approve ratification of the TPF Transportation Project Fund application for a capital project involving Avenue K from Highway 70 to West 17th Street intersections.
Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna correct this one. Because it is similar, I believe. It is 95-5. Also not 75-25. But yes, this one is to ratify the TPF application that we have put in.
And am I under the impression that this is another one that we're working in conjunction with the university on this particular project?
We do have a support letter from them, so yes.
Thank you all for seeing.
So sorry, I don't mean to interrupt Joe on this. City Manager Austin did get with the university and they do offer some match on this one. And this is essentially why this project was selected. And I kind of want to clarify the difference. You have two applications going in this year that we're working on here. And this is something that the SERPO committee that evaluates these.
Explain SERPO, please, sir. Not
Yes.
everybody understands.
So SERPO is the Southeastern Regional, it's the District Two committee of all the entities that are made up together that evaluate all these applications that go in for this excise tax that the state put in, I think, about 5 years ago now. We've really tried to put together a process that is fair for all entities, because the way this was working before is it was one process for everyone. And Portales was going up against Hobbs. I mean, it was not a fair process to give everyone a fair shake at funding. And what was happening is your 2 or 3 larger entities were going in and bullying all the small ones. So the small ones never had a chance at getting any of this funding that was coming down. So we recognized this and we put in a process that was fair, and we divided up the categories to capital, construction, maintenance, and design. We want entities to come after design so that their projects are ready when they come for capital money. As I spoke earlier, as you receive grant funding, it needs to be spent efficiently. So we put in design, we put in capital so that your large projects can be funded. Your capital projects are ones that are improving infrastructure. They are taking something that was existing and making it better, adding ADA, adding improved infrastructure, making it a thicker road section for increased traffic. Those are your capital projects. Now, most projects in District 2 do not need to be capital, they need to be maintenance. You need to go back and fix what's already existing. You don't need to go reinvent the wheel. You take and you go back with what's existing. If it was asphalt before, it needs to be asphalt again. It's that simple. And we made the applications as such. Your capital applications are more in depth, they're more detailed. They require more requirements to get funded, as they are larger fundings. They're $4 million applications. Your maintenance are $2 million applications, and we allow multiple roads on that. That's why on your previous application, there's 4 roads. Because with your maintenance applications, we want you to get your money and we want you to put it back on the dirt, dollars to dirt. That's the whole point. We want you to use a price agreement. We want you to come in and we want you to fix your roads back to new condition. We don't want you to improve them. We don't want you to do anything else. We want you to come fix your roads. And that's what a lot of our smaller entities have started going after. With your capital application here, this is appropriate for capital because it is a joint with the ENMU. It is going to be a capital application, as it is going to require some ADA improvements and sidewalks and some of the stuff that you're already working on. So that's kind of in a nutshell where we came to where we came up with, and how SERPO evaluates that. And I'll stand for any questions.
Are there any questions with regard to this TPF application?
Okay.
Go ahead.
So I meant to ask this on the other one, and we've got to do a vote before I got a chance, but anyway. Are these to be bid out to a contractor, or are these going to be taken care of in-house?
So the intention on these, and the capital projects are large enough that they need to be bid out. There needs to be a competitive process that goes along with that. Your capital projects need to have some sort of design. They'll have your engineers on them as you have ADA and you have your infrastructure there that needs to be bid with your bid schedule. The intention of the maintenance is what's essentially best for the city of Portales. Our encouragement is that you find an applicable price agreement, be it the state price agreement, be it the city of Portales' price agreement that we're starting to discuss and wanting to put in place, and you utilize that so that it's as efficiently as possible. But we also have a neighboring county that did use the TPF maintenance money for your in-house materials and crews. So, and that's why the way that the scope is worded is as it is for improvements, or can't even remember how we did it, but maintenance, rehabilitation, construction, pavement rehabilitation, drainage improvements. That covers anything you could want to do to roads in the city of Portales. So that's why we word those the way that they do.
Okay. Any other questions? Pleasure of the council with regard to this particular application.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Lopez, second by Mr. Merrick. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much. Next item is the fire department recommendation for approval of the donation of 11 Philips Heart Start on-site defibrillators, 3 batteries, and 41 adult defibrillator pads from the Portales Municipal School District for Portales Fire Department to pass along to volunteer departments in our community. Acceptance of the donation of online quoted value of $12,551. Chief Cat.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. A while back, the school contacted me. They received a grant to purchase new automatic external defibrillators, or AEDs. Asked if we'd be interested in these. It's a new requirement from the NFPA, or the National Fire Prevention or Protection Association, and the Insurance Services Office, or ISO, for all departments to have an AED on their suppression apparatus. That's a hard thing because these things aren't cheap for all departments to do, especially our volunteer departments. So our hope is to utilize this to help bolster that and help them meet those requirements. And a little bit of a funny story, our city manager, wearing all the hats that she wears and doing all the things that she does for the city, contacted me, said, "Hey, do you have anything for the agenda?" I said, "No, ma'am." Well, then the schools called me and I had to call her and eat a little bit of crow and apologize and beg her to put it on the agenda so that we could get these accepted and get these out to the volunteer departments.
Questions for Chief Cat regarding this donation?
I have a question. So is there maintenance that's required and needed of these, and who takes care of that?
That will fall under the possessor of the AED. We are going to utilize our mutual aid agreements to loan these to the volunteer departments. And then it will be their responsibility to purchase the pads, update the batteries, have them checked and so on.
Thank you.
Further questions?
These have to be certified every year. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Although I don't believe the state fire marshal's office checks that.
That's probably a good belief.
Carol knows.
Any other questions? If not, what's pleasure, council?
TJ, I just want to say thank you for thinking about the volunteer firefighters. I know that you always have them in the back of your mind. And with that, I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Cordova, second by Mr. Merrick. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. That concludes our action items for now. We are now to the city council and staff comments. I'll begin with staff. Does anyone in this staff have comments come before the council at this time? Ms. McClellan.
I know you guys heard enough of me, but I really need to brag on Miss Sarah and my animal control staff real quick. Miss Sarah always encourages her department heads to be very community oriented. So I asked animal control how we can be more community oriented, and they came up with set times to patrol schools when kids are walking to school and kids are walking home during drop-offs to patrol for animals. Because we get a very high increase of calls of dogs chasing kids walking. So as long as there's no other pressing calls, you should be seeing animal control every day, patrolling during drop-off and pickups and lunches if they can.
Thank you. Okay, that's good. Anyone else from staff? Chief.
Just real quick, our camera started up for the warning period on the 18th. Last Friday at noon, there was almost 600 violations.
Which one, how many of us were violators?
I didn't see anybody up there.
Might want to look again.
Yeah, I didn't go through searching everybody's names, but the ones that we did go through because they did a training and showing us how to get it done. There was almost 600 violations by noon on Friday.
So I'm sure going down below, I was probably one of them. So.
It's a warning period, so
All right, thank you, Chief.
How
Hey,
long does
Chief,
that
yeah.
warning period last?
30 days.
30 minutes.
And so are we sending warnings in the mail to them for each one of those,
The
all
company
600?
will- Yes,
Say it again,
the company will do that for this 30 day period.
but we're on the hook for the postage of 630 of them.
Not right now.
Okay, good deal.
No, in fact, because it was before you were here, this is a zero cost program. If the funding comes from the violators, none of it can be paid out of general fund. It all has to come from.
Good deal.
And just so people know and realize, on Globe Street, that's a 25-mile-an-hour speed zone. Unless it's in the school zone.
Right, and there were violations in the 50s.
Yep, we see that all the time.
Chief, is it 24/7 on the cameras? Yes. Okay, because someone asked on Globe, especially Globe, by the 25 and 15. After school, it's 25 mile an hour and you'll be clocking that. Yes, sir. It's running 24/7.
Any other comments from staff? If not, Mr. Elkins.
I would just say, mainly to Chief Williams, now that we've got the intersection of, what is that, Kilgore and 18th closed. We've got heavy traffic in that residential area. So be very, very careful driving around there. We got little kids, so please don't hit my kids. That's all I got tonight.
Mr. Lopez.
I want to thank all the senior center, citizens here for coming to our meeting. I bet you it's kind of boring, but anyway, we thank you, and we're here to help you. Don't be shy to come out here and let us know what you guys need. That's all.
Michelle.
Yeah, I'd like to reiterate the concrete and action plan as far as the city roads going forward. I just think that's gotta be a part of the plan. The maintenance will cut down drastically. It may be more of an upfront cost, but long term, I think it'll be well worth it.
Mr. Robinson.
Yeah, I would like to say that I'm really impressed with my meeting with the young man who just spoke about the roads, about the contractor, and I'm really excited about what he's going to bring to the community, and I think we're going to get some good mileage out of him. He's a knowledgeable person, and I think that maybe we'll eventually get rid of some of what about my potholes to what about my nice smooth road. So I think that's where we're going.
Thank you, Oscar. Mr. Rattler.
I have a couple of things. I'm curious if we offer CDL training to new employees that are gonna be driving, like sanitation, et cetera. Somebody told me that in the past, the city used to pay for their CDL training if they needed it. And I didn't know if that was still the policy or if that holds us up, or.
We still do it.
Yes.
Perfect. Great. I just thought that was really important. And then the only other thing I had is the responsibility for the online request. I've had a few people ask me, say they put in online request and haven't gotten a response. I know the ones I've personally put in, especially on Steve's department, he's responded same day. So I don't know where that was falling, but I just wanted to bring it to your attention to make sure the online responses that people put in on the website are being addressed promptly, even just to let them know you're on it, even if you're not able to address it right away. And last, I'd just like to tell my wife happy anniversary since I'm not there to celebrate it later. So.
I like Preston's birthday today. Thank you, Mike. Ms. Parker.
Update on street sweeper. I know I keep asking about that, but is something that we need so bad.
Same
And
response to the last one.
is it still on back order? We still don't have one, because it just makes our town just look really, really bad as far as lots of trash in the streets and.
Down the Longwood, we can't touch them.
I'm sorry,
Down First and Second, we can't touch them.
right, because it's the state highway, so we just have to wait for that to come in.
And he does have a request in, but they have one street sweeper for the whole region. So we're on a list to have that done. It's just, we don't have a date and time when it's gonna be done.
Thank you.
Mr. Merritt.
Yes, I kind of had a question. So years ago, whenever we did Highway 70 through town and concreted it all, did we run out of funding? Why did we stop where we stopped? And can we try to get funding to finish out the project and go on?
State highway's gotta do it.
Yeah, but I mean, are we going to the meetings and requesting this be put on their list? Or I know there's a regional office in Roswell that has meetings, and we'd have to go down there and request that this be put on their agenda. So
That's definitely something we can.
attending that, or are we keeping up with it?
Mr. Burns, I think maybe you can answer that. That goes to Serpo, right?
There's several avenues for funding. The DOT projects on DOT roads, on major roads like that, go through a significant process. What I'll offer you, counselor, is we can reach out to DOT. If I might, some of our folks and we can talk to our district engineer and try to get them, we can answer on what their plan, what their status is on that, if they are planning to continue it anytime.
And if I recall, And I mean, that process to get done, what got done was
It was extensive.
years
Yes.
before it came about. So we need to start.
I'm thinking the whole project was put in to finish it all the way out of town,
Well,
both directions.
and your granddad might have been mayor when that started. So
Probably was.
that was in the 70s. Anything else?
The other thing is, during our visit on the well field, and I think we'll be discussing this, water meeting. I think that we discovered a potential problem out there with the fact that we don't have a storage tank out there in our well field.
We don't have any gathering system.
No, so we're basically using the wells that are out there to push that water all the way from where they're at located to the tanks on top of the hill. And if there's any wear and tear on a pump and the efficiency of that pump starts decreasing, then that well is just basically holding water static in the line and not being pushed. So while we were sitting there at the tanks the other day, we were watching the flow meter coming in. And there's two things that could affect this. The flow meter was fluctuating about 500 gallons a minute. Just sitting there watching the flow coming in. If that line, and I didn't realize this until I talked with another individual that brought this to my attention. I never even thought about it. They've started putting their flow meters in vertically. Because on a horizontal line, if there's a cavitation in there, it's going to pick that up. But when you put the meter in vertically, it's got to fill that line before it can push that water past that point. So then everything that you're metering is actually in a full line and you're getting the more accurate reading on it.
And the other way it's surging.
And the other way it's surging, so you're not really getting an accurate reading on the amount of water going through there. So there's a few things that during that tour that we kind of found out, and I just want to say that we are working on some solutions and everybody just needs to be patient and help us to. I know you all want to go back to watering your yards, and right now, unfortunately, we're not going to be able to do that because we just can't come up with the actual water. But with a little research and a little bit more discussion on this thing, maybe we can come up with some solutions.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I think that gathering system and that storage tank is very important and number one priority. So, Ms. Cordova.
I just have a few things. Steve, thank you for the speed bump. I have had 10 calls today saying that they want speed bumps now, so I'm gonna keep you busy. And I just wanted to thank the staff that went to the game to support ENMU. We had a really good community turnout, but we also had a really good staff turnout. So I was really impressed by everybody that showed up. So thank you for that. And then also really excited about the streets and having Jason on board with his knowledge and expertise. So thank you for committing to our community. We appreciate that. And then I also want to say happy birthday to my daughter that turned 26 years old today.
I just have really one thing. You may recall that back during the session, we talked about, we had on our list a request for $350,000 for animal control and improvements to Animal Control Center. And I was told by Lieutenant Governor Howie Morales that he would take care of that for us. Well, I received a call from him last Wednesday. Yes, last Wednesday, apologizing that fell through the cracks and that he's working through some emergency funding to get that money to us. He said, I made you a commitment. I plan to honor that commitment. So hopefully, with his work, that will come to fruition. But I really appreciate him taking the time to reach out and say, sorry, that slipped through the cracks. He's not sure why it slipped through the cracks, but he's working to find some funding that he can get that to us, that we don't wait till the next session. So I just wanted to make that clear. Thank you. I really do appreciate that from Howard. So our next item is action to convene in closed meeting to discuss matters as provided for under New Mexico statutes relating to limited personnel pertaining to limited personnel matters, RE city manager, and matters to limited pertaining to potential litigation and attorney-client privilege information. I need a motion to go into public or closed session.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Elkins, a second by Ms. Parker. Ms. Swopes, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Cordova,
Yes.
Mr. Robinson,
Yes.
Mr. Lopez,
Yes.
Mr. Stel,
Yes.
Ms. Parker,
Yes.
Mr. Rackler,
Yes.
Mr. Elkins,
Yes.
Mr. Merrick.
Yes.
Okay, we are in closed session. If you would give us a. I need a motion to come out of executive session into regular session.
So move. Second.
Motion and a second to return to regular session. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I'd like to state that only those items that were mentioned in the motion to go into executive session were discussed. And we have one action item.
I'm making a motion that we accept agreement from Roosevelt County for a mutual kind service to include animal control, fire EMS, and detention to take effect immediately, with dispatch services to be included for 25. And subsequent years, the agreement would cover a term of 3 years, 24, 25, and 26, ending June 30th of 26. Written agreements to be approved by both parties at their future meeting.
Second.
Good. I have a motion by Mr. Rackler. A second by Mr. Elkins. Did you get the motion?
It's a long motion.
It's a long motion.
Long motion. Could you repeat it at the beginning?
Glad I have it written down. Make a motion to accept agreement from Roosevelt County for mutual in-kind service to include animal control, fire, EMS, and detention to take effect immediately, with the dispatch services to be included in 2025 and subsequent years. The agreement would cover a term of 3 years, including 24, 25, 26, ending June 30th of 26. Written agreements to be approved by both parties at their future meeting.
Thank you.
Okay. And I have a motion and a second. Does everyone understand the motion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We are adjourned.